Hello, my name is Lara Q Thomas and I'm going to be joining Youth Business Trinidad and Tobago this year for International Women's Day on the 8th of March. And what does International Women's Day really mean to me and to women around the world? It is a recognition and acknowledgement of the work that women have done and continue to do in the home, in society, in organizations, in industry. But really more than that, it is an opportunity for us to come together and acknowledge how far we've come and really understand how much more work there is to do. We still are not receiving the same kind of equity that we would like in boardrooms, in pay packages, in many different areas of life. And of course, around the world, there are still millions of women who remain uneducated, unable to access opportunities, financing, to realize their full potential. So I think International Women's Day is really twofold. One, a moment to stop and reflect and celebrate on everything that women have achieved so far in the last 2,000 years, in what we've done, what we've given to society, what we continue to give. But really it's an opportunity for us to stop and say, how much more do we have to do? What now? What next? So join us on the 8th of March, join Youth Business Trinidad and Tobago and my esteemed panelists as we really look at all of the different issues, or many of the different issues that affect women in Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean and in the wider world. Hope you'll join us. Look forward to seeing you then. Happy International Women's Day.
Hi, I'm Renie and I'm the co-founder of D Market Movers Limited. And I'm a proud female entrepreneur. I've been one for over 15 years now. When I think of International Women's Day, I think about three things. I think about acknowledgement, that there's this day that acknowledges all the amazing strengths and unique capabilities that women have always possessed. I also think about access, the thousands of events that are happening today all over the world where women are getting access to information, technology, and networking, meeting experts and persons in their own field. And access is very empowering. Lastly, when I think of International Women's Day, I think about accountability. Now that we have this access and this acknowledgement, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to blaze our own trail? How are we going to inspire others to come after us? I look forward to celebrating International Women's Day with the Youth Business of Trinidad and Tobago, discussing how I blaze my own trail as a female entrepreneur in the Caribbean. And happy International Women's Day 2023. I look forward to chatting more.
On March 8th every year, we celebrate women. And so International Women's Day means many things to me. It means an opportunity for me to see the strength, the diversity, and the achievement of other females in my life and who have influenced me. It shows also that females are diverse in that they can make a situation that they are in more livable and comfortable for people around them. It also speaks to our ability to be leaders and to use our situation to guide the way in which the people who we influence can become better people. It is also an opportunity for us to learn from each other, to showcase all of the things that we've done as females, and to be the person who can then carry the next generation of females onwards.
So what does International Women's Day mean to me? Well, the challenges facing women and girls varies from country to country and community to community. As a Caribbean woman, to me, International Women's Day is an opportunity for women to network and to see themselves as allies. All too often, Caribbean women see each other as a threat. Listen to any dancehall tune, wifey versus matey, or no girl can't take your man. Instead, we should be working together to highlight our unique challenges as Caribbean women and push for systemic changes in order to give more options to women and their partners to strive towards their own version of economic, mental, and social freedom. As a Trinidadian woman, International Women's Day means to me an opportunity to call for more data gathering around what happens to women after graduating from university. In particular, Trinidad and Tobago ranks among the top 15 countries when it comes to access of girls to free, equitable education. In fact, at tertiary level, we have more female graduates than male graduates, and this includes the fields of science and technology, with engineering being the only exception. So what we need to look at now is whether women who graduate in STEM fields in Trinidad and Tobago get jobs in STEM fields, and whether women who are in STEM jobs stay in STEM jobs compared to men. Because we've educated these girls, but is the Trinidad and Tobago society conducive for women to take up the jobs for which they've studied? And is the workplace set up for women to stay in careers for which they've studied?
Good morning, and thank you to all of our esteemed panelists. Good morning, everyone, and happy International Women's Day to each and every one of you. On behalf of Youth Business Trinidad and Tobago and Solve Academy, it is my pleasure to welcome you to our virtual panel discussion, where we're going to focus on the theme, Embrace Equity, and we're taking a look at that theme from 4 different female perspectives. International Women's Day, as mentioned and as known by many, is a wonderful opportunity for people to come together and celebrate women. We honor the women who've made a significant impact on our lives, and we celebrate women everywhere. Of course, it's also a wonderful chance to learn about important issues, assess how they affect you personally, and consider what you might do about them. International Women's Day marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. And this virtual gathering this morning is going to do just that, as we celebrate women's accomplishments and take the opportunity to consider how technology and creativity can also improve gender equality and equity. As mentioned, my name is Denise Caesar of Solve Academy, and we have a fantastic lineup of speakers. So I'm certain that this panel discussion is not only going to be educational, but it's also going to be quite inspirational. We mentioned we're looking at 4 female perspectives, and these females come from different backgrounds. So whether you're looking to earn a seat at the table, trying to blaze your own trail as an entrepreneur, creating opportunities, or need help and support in creating opportunities to help you thrive as an entrepreneur, or you're looking to crack that code in terms of equity, this panel discussion is exactly what you need. So let's get into it. Every year for International Women's Day, there's usually a theme. As you know, we're working with the theme of Embrace Equity, but there's also the UN's theme of Digital, as in Digit All, innovation and technology for gender equality. And that emphasizes the crucial role that innovation and technology play in advancing gender equality and empowering women in all spheres of life. Digital, in fact, refers to that significant role that innovation and technology play in this process. So while providing women with the resources and platforms they need to learn, connect, and grow, technology is also an enabler because it has the potential to equalize access to opportunities and to resources. Now, as it relates to equity, for those of us who work in the corporate environment, equity is the E that is frequently used in the middle of that acronym, DEI. Most organizations already have or are trying to put DEI strategies in place for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But understanding the difference between equity and equality is critical, because by acknowledging that equal opportunities can in fact be exclusionary and rather than inclusive, we're already starting the conversation that's going to change things going forward. So as the team brings up the first image, we're going to take just a graphic look at what is the difference between equality and equity. We need to pave the way. We need to start with this foundational element, because as you'll see, equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances, and it allocates the exact resources and opportunities that are needed to reach an equal outcome. That's what equity implies. But the top of the graphic highlights equality, which means each individual or group of people is essentially given the same resources or opportunities. What we're saying and what we wanted to keep in mind throughout this panel discussion is that every individual has different requirements and life experiences, but they also require different opportunities and resources as well. And that is in order to reach their full potential. That's what it means to embrace equity. A level playing field must be created for everyone to grow and succeed in both their personal and professional lives. And that's regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, or any other factor. So that panel discussion I was telling you about, let's get started with that now. This is a collaborative discussion for International Women's Day, and I have the privilege of introducing our esteemed panelists. So here's how we're going to do it. I will introduce all of them to you. So that saves us time in between our various discussions. So when we have introduced them all, we then begin our one-on-one panel discussions for each one of them, looking at their specific areas of expertise. And then we'll follow up with a combined discussion with all panelists, just to share one key takeaway or one key point. So as you're here joining us, again, we're happy to have you. Happy International Women's Day. Your role is going to be very simple. And your role, if you choose to accept it, is simply to place questions in the chat, or if you're joining us live on Facebook, you can put your questions in the comments there, and we'll try to compile them and raise as many of them as possible as time will allow. So keep in mind too, giving you a heads up very early, that we're going to have a photo op session. So if you're not camera ready yet, this is a great opportunity for you to get camera ready. So whatever you're doing to mark International Women's Day in your little area, behind that screen of yours, whether you're dressed in purple, you have an International Women's Day virtual background, whatever it is, please note that we would love an opportunity for a photo op where we would showcase all of you who are present here, because we're really happy to have you. One thing that you'll see reoccurring in between every panel discussion is going to be a little something called embracing one message. Now, what do we mean by that, or what is expected of you? All you have to do, just to show that you're enthused, you're with us, you're following us throughout every discussion, at intervals, we're going to put up a part of an expression. We're going to give you just about 3 to 5 words of what will eventually form a combined embracing statement at the end. We want you to stay tuned. We want to keep you here. So that's why we're doing it in parts. We're doing it in parts, and we're going to start by bringing up image number 2. Image number 2 introduces the first part of this all-embracing message. Remember, the point of it is when you leave, you're going to leave with a lot of insightful information from the panelists. But beyond that, we want you to have one memorable statement that you're going to keep with you and remember for years to come. So let me start by introducing our panelists. Let me tell you a story about Lara Q Thomas, a powerhouse in the recruitment and human resources management sphere, with more than 30 years of experience across the UK and Trinidad and Tobago. For the past 26 years, Lara has been an entrepreneur and company owner, leaving her mark as the founder and chairperson of Regency Recruitment and Resources Limited. With her MBA and multiple other certificates in industrial relations, labor law, mediation, behavioral economics, and contract law, Lara is a true expert in her field. And her contributions to Trinidad and Tobago don't just end with her work at Regency. She's a director for the National Training Agency, Youth Business TT, and an alternate member for the Registration, Recognition, and Certification Board, the Vice President of the Human Resources Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and there's a long list. As I said, that's not all. Lara is also Director and Secretary of the International Women's Forum of Trinidad and Tobago, as well as the founder and first President of the Association of Female Executives of Trinidad and Tobago. Her passion for empowering women is evident in her recent contribution, her most recent one, that is, if you were not at the table, you are probably on the menu. This was a feature that she did in a book entitled Virago Warrior Woman back in 2021. So we welcome Lara Q Thomas to today's panel. Lara would also be supported by Cardelle Ferguson. Let's meet Cardelle Ferguson, a Caribbean national with a diverse range of skills and experiences in business development, training, finance, and marketing. As a social enterprise specialist, she's passionate about entrepreneurship and youth development and works tirelessly to support businesses and entrepreneurs in various areas and aspects of business development and training. With an impressive educational background that includes a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Science and Management and a Master's in Business Administration, Cardelle is constantly improving her skills and staying up to date through training programs and serving as a panelist or facilitator. Currently, she holds several leadership roles, including General Manager at Barbados Youth Business Trust, Visionary and Regional Coordinator of the Social Enterprise Incubator operating in Barbados, Dominica, and St. Lucia, and Acting Managing Director of GEN Barbados. So, despite a busy schedule, Cardelle is committed to creating a legacy, not just for the husband and 3 children, but who she lives with in Barbados, but she travels extensively and intends to create a legacy that will certainly help female entrepreneurs across the region. We welcome Cardelle Ferguson. We also have the privilege of having Renie with us. Now, Renie's story is one of perseverance and entrepreneurial spirit. For over 13 years, Rachel has been dedicated to the field of agriculture and technology, co-founding 3 successful businesses within that sector. These companies include the Market Movers Limited, Farm and Function Limited, Market Movers Design, the 3rd. Her passion for entrepreneurship and her expertise in the field have earned her recognition, including Ernst & Young's Emerging Entrepreneur of the Year Award in 2016. Rachel is also a certified mentor of the youth business of Trinidad and Tobago, sharing her knowledge and experience to help young entrepreneurs succeed. With a bachelor's in international relations from City University in New York and a scale-up graduate certificate from the Unit Trust Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago, entrepreneurship policy advisors, Rachel's education and experience have prepared her well for her role as co-founder and managing director of the Market Movers Limited, co-founder and managing director of Farm Function Limited, and co-founder and client manager of Market Movers Design. Rachel's determination, skill, and passion are a true inspiration to anyone looking to make their mark in the world of entrepreneurship. Which brings us to our final panelist this morning. Her name is Sara Bernard. Once a leading figure in Trinidad and Tobago's LNG industry, Sara Bernard is now a driving force in the island's educational landscape. As the founder of Smart Kids Educational Club, Sara has dedicated herself to preparing Trinidad and Tobago for the 4th Industrial Revolution, ensuring that its youth are equipped with the skills they need to excel in the digital age. Smart Kids' specialty lies in the development of coding and STEAM curricula, with the organization's Tech Camp being the #1 in the country. Sara has set an ambitious goal for herself and her team, which is to support the development of digital skills in 1,000 kids and teens every single year. Through her work, Sara has introduced over 2,000 students to STEM and coding, developed the first STEAM curricula in Trinidad and Tobago for kids under 5 years, and trained 25 STEM teachers. Her tireless efforts have not gone unnoticed, as she recently was recognized as one of the top 50 Caribbean women in tech for 2021 by Silicon Caribbean. With a belief that every citizen needs relevant digital skills to innovate, create, and to be more efficient, Sara is a future shaper whose influence will undoubtedly be felt for years to come. What an distinguished and esteemed panel we have with us this morning. If you're happy to have such a wonderful group of women take the lead as we discuss embracing equity, use an emoji, use one of your reactions, and give us some love. Show us some love. Put something in the chat, in the comments online, just expressing your absolute enthusiasm about being here this morning. So it's time for us to get started. And we start with our first panelist. I did a beautiful job, I would think, in introducing her a moment ago. Yes? I'm seeing some of the love on the chat, man. There's that round of applause. Lovely. Thank you for showing that appreciation. So we're starting first with our discussion on embrace equity, earning your seat at the table. And joining me virtually on screen is Lara Q Thomas. Good morning, Lara.
Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. And happy International Women's Day to everyone in Trinidad and Tobago and beyond.
Very nice. We're so happy to have you. Thank you so much for making the time to fit this in.
Well, when Shedron asks, you're not really allowed to say no. So, you know.
That's good to know. That's certainly good to know. Lara, I guess in your realm, you're quite familiar with the fact that every time the words equity or equality come up, most people tend to only talk about pay equity. For whatever reason, it's a common association that is made once you start having words like equity and equality being thrown about. But we want to get a little bit more from this discussion with you. And that's why we're going to be focusing on that seat at the table. And I want to start by asking this question. From where you sit, have you seen progress in the representation of women in leadership roles in recent years?
I would have to say yes. I don't know if you saw recently the president of the IDB was in Trinidad and commended Trinidad and Tobago on the strides that we've taken in terms of female leadership. Of course, we have a female president of the Republic. You know, they're a female police commissioner now. We have a pretty good representation of women in our political leadership. There is still a gap in our boards. Some private boards have done a really good job about having equity quotas and really promoting equity and having an agenda to make sure that they focus on that. But there are still many boards, if you go and have a look, state and private, where there's hardly any representation by women. And so I think you're absolutely correct. Equity is not just about pay. It is equity of access to opportunities at all levels in society. It's always fascinated me in Trinidad, like many countries, where large institutions, predominantly female workforce, only up to a certain level. Yes. And of course, the glass ceiling, or
yes, that glass ceiling.
And then very few women manage to sort of get beyond that for a myriad of reasons that have been well studied. So Trinidad is not terrible. We're not the worst in the world by any means, but we still do have opportunities for improvement.
And I'm glad you said that. It means there's a bit of optimism. But going back to that point you made about that glass ceiling, and I mean, for International Women's Day, you're going to see a number of graphics and visuals across the internet about shattering the glass ceiling. And it almost feels as if it's cliche. It's just something that people say now. But my next question kind of alludes to some of that and what you mentioned earlier. What do you think are some of the biggest barriers that still exist for women in corporate leadership positions? You talked about wanting to see more of it at the board level in some of the corporations, but is that all? Or are there other things that you think, Lara, could be more evident or done more that could be done?
I think it's really on two sides, right? So you need to sort of tackle this from two angles. One is the organization, the persons that are selecting directors for boards need to have equity on their checklist. Mm-hmm. So that when we are recruiting directors, asking for recommendations for directors for whichever board it is, that gender and other forms of equity, it's not only gender, of course, are represented on the board, so that there is a certain amount of diversity, which, as we know and has been proven, leads to stronger boards. It leads to much better decision-making, much better fiscal management if you have a diversity of thoughts and experiences on your board. So having more women on the board makes financial sense, which is often the argument that you have to use to persuade people. But I think, and then on the other side is, of course, women have to make themselves ready to serve on boards. And in many cases, it's not a criticism of women. It's the fact that we have not yet explored what skills we need to serve on boards. In fact, just this morning, I posted an article on LinkedIn from McKinsey about some of the things that women need to do to prepare themselves to be considered for board positions. And we're talking about larger boards, state boards, for example, where, you know, you're not going to just get the job because you're a woman. You have to bring some expertise to the role, to the discussion. You have to be somebody who is known to be solution oriented. You know, something I tell people all the time is that you have to be an expert. You have to show yourself as an expert or a thought leader in your particular area of expertise. And in many boards, particularly the state boards where they are prescribed by law in many cases, they are looking for specific expertise. So, you know, they'll have to have a lawyer, they'll have to have an HR professional, they'll have to have somebody from the CBO sector, depending on what the law prescribes. So there are opportunities there. And I really, you know, a lot of people complain about Trinidad and Tobago and what's wrong and it's terrible and all of these things. But if you're not willing to step up and serve on boards, state boards, and help be part of the solution, you know, I lose respect for people who just want to complain but not be part of the solution. And that's what we look for when we're looking at potential directors, male or female. So it's important for women to study and research and prepare themselves to be considered for board roles. And sometimes it can be very simple things, like a lot of board meetings, certainly a couple that I sit on, we start at 7 o'clock at night. And sometimes those meetings don't finish till 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. If you've got a young family, that's not ideal, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, you know, some boards also could do a better job at being more flexible, bearing in mind that, you know, the child responsibilities that women may have, etc. But generally speaking, we have to do more adapting than they will. So you have to sort of adapt to, you know, they've been doing it this way for 2,000 years. So I really want to make sure that women understand it is not just going to be you get asked because you're a woman. You have to add value. You have to read, study, not just your area of expertise, but the industry that this board is in. So I sit, as you mentioned, on the National Training Agency board. I'm not an expert in tech voc. I'm not an expert really even in education other than as a student. So I made sure when I was invited to go and study and to be able to contribute to discussions around the industry that I'm now helping to support. So it's not enough to just be the token woman on the board or the token minority. You have to add substance. You have to add value to be taken seriously. Otherwise, why are we even doing this?
Oh, that is such a number of key takeaways there, Lara. Really love that. The importance of showing up. And if you're showing up, you ought to be a thought leader. You're not just, it's not just a case of tokenism where they need to have a certain number of female members on the board, and therefore you represent that and you don't add value. So many strong points that you made. A lot of what you were saying too made me think of this question, which is not one that we had scripted, but nevertheless, it's important. The hesitation that you're seeing, the reluctance for women to step up and to be on these boards. Could it be a bit of imposter syndrome? Is it a little bit of intimidation? Is that what we're experiencing as women?
Yes, I think, and actually the whole state board conversation is an interesting one because a lot of men and women are choosing not to serve, not because of imposter syndrome, but because of the integrity and public life requirements, the IPLA filings. So there's a lot of talent that we are missing on state boards because that Integrity in Public Life Act is so onerous and invasive in some people's view. Mm-hmm. You know, I have complied with it. I comply with it every year, but it's, you know, it's not ideal. Let's put it that way. But in terms of the imposter syndrome, I understand what you're saying. A lot of people, again, men and women, don't necessarily have the confidence in themselves to be able to think that they can add value. And that's where I think it's so important that you are genuine. And I like this whole theme of embracing your true self, because you shouldn't present yourself to the board as something that you are not. If you are not an expert in HR, don't tell them that you are, because you will get found out. And I have served on boards with people who clearly didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And you really wonder why is this person on the board, really? Yes. What value are they adding? So you have to be genuine. You have to absolutely remain authentic. But within your area of expertise, your specific skill set, you can really become a thought leader. so that you become, you know, the recognized authority on X or Y, depending on what your strength is. You know, as for example, Sarah's become an expert on STEM and on STEAM. You know, Rachel's now an expert on green foods and farm to table and all of these lovely concepts. So build your niche. It doesn't mean you can't also be a generalist on industry or the economy or what have you, but you've got to have strength in your own lane to build that expertise, because then my experience has been that people then recommend you to board positions. If they see you on one board and you've really excelled and you've added real value, then you often are recommended for other board positions. And just give you a very quick short story from my own experience. I have sat on boards where I've been the only woman. And typically what has happened, and mostly with NGOs, I have to say, is that they always expect that I will take the minutes because I'm a woman. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, Lara will do the minutes,
there
right?
you go. Yes.
Which you know, of course, as you can imagine, absolutely enrages me.
Of course.
But then
as subsequent,
subsequent to that, at one board, I was taking the minutes and I got mansplained about 3 times during this meeting. But because I was writing the minutes, I put in the minutes, Lara said, and Lara suggested. So I didn't even bother to write the name of the man who over-explained, you know, explained my theory to the rest of the board. So mansplaining is also a very real phenomenon that you have to find strategies to cope with. But don't be afraid to be not aggressive, but assertive.
Love that.
You know, you have to be, you really got to fight for your seat at the table. You know, as Shelley Chisholm said, if they don't give you a seat, you bring your own.
Yes.
But also, you know, my philosophy, as you know, is if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And that means that if you're not at the table where decisions are made about you, about your life, your family, your country, then, you know, you're on the menu. So be in the rooms where the decisions are made.
Love that. Love that. So many nuggets that you just gave there. I noted the one that you just said there about being assertive rather than aggressive, because of course you feed into all of the negative stereotypes with regards to women if you just go straight into aggression. And we don't want that. Not today, not ever. But one of the key ones in the myriad of points you've shared was that of strength. You said, have your strength in your lane, or show your strength in your lane. I love that. If you're a subject matter expert or you have a niche area, no one must know more about your industry than you.
Yeah. And so you are your own competitive advantage, right? You are your own brand. So you have to be, and again, this is a journey, right? I mean, it's taken me 30 years to get to this point. So it's not going to happen overnight. You have to put the work in, you have to network, you have to be in the places where discussions are happening about your vocation, about your industry. So you start to become and build your expertise. And one of the things then that, you know, I often do is I write articles and I submit them. Sometimes I'll get invited to, sometimes I'll just send them anyway, because I have a particular thought on an issue that I'd like to share with people. So it's really around building your own expertise in that particular area, and not being then afraid to say to the world, hey, I'm really good at this. You should listen to me, or you should invite me on your program, or you should let me speak to your employees, or whatever it is that, you know, you're doing. And one of the things at the heart of this, and if our viewers learn nothing else today, it's to please read. Not just, you know, nonsense on your phone watching TikTok videos, although I do that too. You have to read. You have to learn about what's going on in the economy, in your industry, in the world, because directors particularly are expected to be knowledgeable. So if you only have a very myopic view of your little corner of Trinidad and Tobago, your little job, you know, you've got to expand your horizons and your knowledge. And of course, it's all there now. You don't even have to go to the library anymore, as much as we love libraries. Yes. So I really want to stress that, you know, please read and expand your knowledge, to add to your knowledge base, to make yourself a serious contender for these seats at the table.
Correct. Well said. One of the questions we had, which I think you kind of touched on, was what will you change about the assumptions made by men about women? And I guess expecting that you would be the one to take the minutes in all of those board meetings, that is certainly one of those things that you would want to change. It's an assumption. But is there anything else?
Well, I mean, it really is up to the individual woman to take on the challenges as they come. And I am somebody, and Shedron and I sit on a board, so he knows this about me. I do not sit quietly by. I'm not the sort of woman that sits quietly in a corner and takes it. I am quite outspoken, but that's not every woman's style. So if you experience what you perceive to be an injustice or mansplaining, there are different ways. You maybe speak privately to the chairman of the board afterwards to say, look, this happened and I wasn't very comfortable. Or you speak directly to that person who you feel has undermined you or, you know, made you feel uncomfortable. And trust me when I tell you that there are some boards that you will sit on where the misogyny is quite evident.
It's real.
And yeah, it's a very real thing, especially if you're a younger woman. That can also, then you've got the age aspect to it as well. So this is why I say that you have to be a serious professional in that conversation, but don't let them roll over you. Don't, just because you're young or it's your first board appointment, you know, you have to stand firm and stand strong. You may not feel comfortable to challenge the whole board, so there's different mechanisms you can use. Most good boards have an opportunity for a complaints mechanism or reporting abuse or something. There is typically, in most boards that I've served on, there is an opportunity to do that, but I would suggest not getting too formal until you've tried to resolve it informally. Sometimes these old men don't even know what they're saying. They don't even realize that they're being, you know, old-fashioned and misogynistic. And it's our job to show them that they are and to ask them to not do it again. Very politely, very nicely. I'm not taking the minutes. Somebody else can do that. Oh. But I will always spell check.
Very nice. Such beautiful points, Lara. It is indeed a pleasure to hear your perspective and the advice that you're giving us to help us earn that seat at the table. I have one last question, one final question before we move on. And it's the one with regards to steps that organizations can perhaps take to support or promote women into leadership roles. Do you care to share briefly what some of your thoughts are on that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's a really important aspect of this whole conversation. So there's a number of things that organizations can do relatively inexpensively and with minimal policy change, things like flexi time, hybrid work. You know, we've all come through the pandemic and many of our organizations, mine included, have retained hybrid work. And that really does, even though it's great for everybody, it really does benefit women because women predominantly have the child school pickup, responsibility. So that's been a huge win for many professional women, and the use of technology to allow women to participate different times of the day and night, what have you. There also needs to be the training. Women need to be able to access training around things like, as I mentioned, what skills are required to be a director, right? What are the skills needed to be a CEO or a leader in an organization? We have tons of programs, MBAs, I mean, everybody here's got their MBA. We've all done those, but they're not quite the same as the skills, in many cases, the soft skills required to be on a board of directors or in a senior leadership role. The other thing which YBTT also does very well is mentorship. I know some of the banks are, if they haven't already, developing mentoring programs so that younger women within the bank are mentored by more senior women and sort of follow in their footsteps, and they bring them up the ladder with them. And that's very powerful, is that network of women at the top where they exist, even if it's a small group, really reaching down and bringing other women up through the organization with mentoring, training, opportunities, job shadowing, whatever it might be. So you can have policies, but of course, it's really about the culture of the organization being one where everybody, you know, a range of talent, skills, experiences, have the opportunities, but there is this particular eye on the fact that we have equity in gender, because that is perhaps one of the easiest to correct, because it's the most obvious. You then can, of course, go through sexual orientation, different abilities. There are other elements of equity that we can look at. But for today, that could be one of the sort of low-hanging fruit, I would suggest. It's not difficult to do.
Beautiful. Such an inspiring discussion. Lara, thank you very much. We really appreciated the insight. And for many of us in the corporate world, we intend to implement many of these. Thank you so much. Let's show some appreciation to Lara Q Thomas, please. You can use your emojis, put it in the chat. I know you've been expressing your appreciation for what she's been sharing.
Oh, I got fire.
I see some fire. You're on fire.
I love that.
Fire.
Thank you.
You're getting flames. Very nice. A wonderful contribution indeed. So thank you very much. So as we say thank you to Lara, we now invite Rachel Renie to join us on the virtual screen.
Hi.
Rachel, what a pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely. Lara made mention of you owning your niche, owning your area. So much of what she said, I'm sure, may have been even valuable for you.
Of course.
Yes. Of course. Definitely. So we're going to start the discussion with Rachel as we look at our second segment in Embracing Equity. For Rachel, we're going to be focusing on blazing your own trail. And it's quite appropriate because Rachel is a female entrepreneur, extraordinaire. Let me throw that in there. Extraordinaire is an important part to add to that. So Rachel, let's start the discussion. Tell us, please, what inspired you to start your own business? And what have been some of the biggest challenges you faced?
Thank you so much, Ms. Cesar. And hi to everyone. I think what inspired me, and I get asked this question all the time, and I usually have a different answer every time, because I don't think there's this one thing that inspires you automatically. But what I will say is, I studied international relations. My dream was to work in the UN. So, I applied for jobs and I wasn't accepted. And starting the business, I started feeling accepted. My business partner, David Thomas, at the time, he was interested in what my skill set was. All of a sudden, we started the business. We had customers, saying, we appreciate the service. We value what you're doing. So I just followed those breadcrumbs. I tried to fit myself into spaces where I feel accepted, where I feel I can be my best self. And that's really how I started a business. I have no experience in entrepreneurship. I was never exposed to business growing up. I've always been exposed to agriculture, but definitely not business. So it's not something that I really knew or understood, but it was always a space where I felt I could be my most self, my best self. And that's why I pursued that path. In terms of challenges, I can relate to what Lara said. I mean, David and I would go meetings and they would assume that I was his secretary or that I would send the email or I would take notes.
Oh,
but what I will say is for many years, I did that. I wasn't confident enough at the time to say, something. But what it did do was build a skill set. I now am so observant. I have so much technical capabilities. I've built my own website, my other companies' websites. I've built websites for large corporations. And I think that although I stayed quiet, I learned from those mistakes and those challenges. So that was one, definitely. And I can tell you a few more, but we can move on.
All right. But what you're saying is quite intriguing, though, because I'm making notes. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm noting some of the things that you're saying. And you mentioned more than once that there were times where you were not confident and you would not speak up. Now, at this point, I want to bring up an image on screen. So I'm asking for image number 3, because Rachel, as you know, we have this embracing one message that we're bringing all throughout the entire discussion. And for all of our viewers, they're supposed to be taking note, because every phrase that we put up, every partial statement that we share is part of a joint or singular message that we will share at the end. And it's interesting that you're talking about amplifying your voice and being quiet and not speaking up. And so we're sharing the second message now, the second part of that message, which is amplify your voice. Now you got the first one where we said, embrace your true self. And we're now at amplifying your voice. So speaking to an entrepreneur is ideal for this. So the viewers online, those on Facebook, those on Zoom, please keep notes because we want to keep you here till the end. There's a special prize for all of you who put the complete statement in the chat for us. We have something special planned for you. So going back to Rachel and amplifying that voice. And I want to ask the question we asked Lara a little bit earlier about the imposter syndrome, as in feeling that you were not good enough. I mean, now you're a boss. I mean, your website built by you, building for other people. So much of what you're doing now exhibits that confidence that maybe you didn't have at the first instance or at the beginning. Did you feel a bit of that intimidation as a woman in your sphere, in the space? You want to share a little bit on that for us?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, you're not representing when you start a big corporation, let's say, and that's supported. When you're an entrepreneur, you're literally convincing a female entrepreneur too, that you're convincing them of your dream, your personal dream, and it can become very personal, emotional. But I really felt like I had to say it. I had to say it out loud. And I would tell it to anyone, my ideas. And there were a lot of no's. There were a lot of, that's impossible. I mean, when we started, we went to every lending agency to get a startup loan. And I'm telling the story. And this loans officer, he was a man, basically told me Trinidadians would never buy food on the internet. And we just crossed 1 million pounds of local food sold on the internet since we started our business.
Wow.
So when you think about someone telling you no, or someone telling you that your dreams don't make sense, they don't really understand it, right? They may not have that perspective or that insight. So you created that dream. So of course you have to amplify your voice. You have to speak up. You have to explain to people as much as possible, why are you passionate about this cause? Why does it mean so much to you? And I think I've proven that my dream was valid and has become such an essential skill in everyday life throughout the Caribbean. We have customers from all over the world. So it's really, imagine if I had listened to that no.
Yeah, boy. Can you imagine? No, but certainly, and we want to congratulate you on all of your successes. The best is yet to come, huh? But
you.
Rachel, tell us this. How can we, and when I say we, we're talking about corporate Trinidad, groups such as the YBTT or Cardelle's group across in Barbados, how can we as a country, as a corporation, how can we support female entrepreneurs, particularly those who are perhaps coming from underrepresented groups?
Right. I mean, the best way is to support their business, right? I sell fruits and vegetables, make a purchase. It is actually one of the best ways you can inspire, motivate an entrepreneur. Every time we get that validation or that proof of concept that there is somebody out there that I never met, clicking yes or buying or supporting my business, it is affirmation, and it's a daily affirmation. Right. Every time we get an online order, every time I hear that ding, I still celebrate it, because all it means is that one more person believes in our story, in what we hope to serve. And definitely supporting female businesses, women businesses, led businesses is definitely a great way to support. I think giving opportunities. So when I started out very young, another female entrepreneur who was way more experienced than myself trusted me to build her website. And that really empowered me. I was like, oh, I could only build my website. I only know how to do this for me. But she was so understanding, and she knew it was my first time. And she, and I think giving that access and opportunity to other women entrepreneurs it made a huge impact on my trajectory. So
very nice. Wonderful. Rachel, something that you said has me thinking. When you talked about that ding that you get, that means that's an order coming in. Does the ding sound a little different, or does it feel a little different when the order is coming in from a local company or local individual as opposed to all of your international contacts? What is supporting local content do for you and mean for you as a female entrepreneur?
I think it validates, again, my purpose. It provides support and a livelihood for everyone involved who along our value chain. We've seen over the years more corporate Trinidad, even ministries, government ministries, requesting local fruits, requesting a sapodilla instead of an apple. Yeah, I mean, we would plant the idea obviously in their heads because they would come and think, okay, we'll support this business. There's a lot of, when you're supporting bigger corporate entities, you know, there's more compliance, there's more responsibility, right? So exactly what Lara was saying, you know, becoming certified, having those skill sets, putting your company in that space, it gives you more and more opportunities. So I had to take that first step. You know, only then did they realize. So I signed up on the registries, you know, as a service provider, and most corporate entities now, they have that opportunity or possibility. So they're not going to know you're there until you click and sign up or register or put your business in that position. So once I did that, we saw more and more large corporations, small businesses, requesting our services because they want to support local, they want to support a local business and give us a chance. And of course, when you get those opportunities, exceed the expectation. Go beyond just what the invoice says. Obviously, not to at a loss.
Your own financial detriment, of course. Yeah.
But give them more than expected because they're going to come back to you. They're going to request your services again. So
very
that
nice.
was definitely my experience with the corporate side.
Got you. The young people would call that being extra. So as it comes to service, you would be extra. Once it's not financially to your detriment, you could be extra. Yeah. Over deliver. Lovely. Rachel, how then, same organizations again, corporate Trinidad, finances, whoever, how can we ensure that women have equal access to funding and to resources that are needed to start and grow their businesses? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think when access to funding is, when I started, I started 15 years ago. So access, even being an entrepreneur, the term was not really revered as it is today. You know, my mother, or family members, you know, she unemployed, but she doing this thing, you know. So there's that idea of it. So over the years, I've seen the word evolve and become, mean more. So again, it's you're being termed as a specialist. Again, it's a new term, right? We have to remember that. And you're a woman entrepreneur. So you're combining these two things that are still very new in the landscape. So you have to go into that understanding, right? That everything won't be perfect. Everything won't be, you know, society on a whole isn't there yet. And even starting a business, I started an online business when personal computers was not even a thing in the Caribbean. People didn't even have credit cards, but I believed that it would become a vital service, right? So you have to understand where you're at in the context of the larger picture, and understanding that where those shortcomings lie, you have to excel. You have to offer even solutions, right? So when I try to access funding and those things, I share, you know, our unique challenges that are faced. And if you don't tell the stakeholders, if you don't tell the gatekeepers, you know, the reality of the situation, or share with them that perspective, I think they're not going to interpret that or factor it into the next round of something, right? Yes. And I've seen it happen. I've seen where just even the communication changes each year on you know, how to serve you all better, how to, you know, and even factoring time constraints and all these things. So definitely you have to let them know, let any of these stakeholders, agencies know your unique challenges, or else they won't really cater for you the next year.
Gotcha. Yeah. Beautiful points. Thanks for that. So Rachel, what advice would you give to other women then who are considering to start their own business? I mean, you've shared a wealth of information in terms of the ups and downs and the challenges and so on. But if we're talking embrace equity, let's just put a spin on that. And we're talking about embracing entrepreneurship. What is the advice you would give them, especially those who are on the fence, thinking about it, a little hesitant? What would you suggest?
I mean, I would say do it now, because the more experience you have, the more years of doing something, you're just going to be more credible, right? So the longer you wait, you're losing that credibility. Even the mistakes you make early on, it's all part of your experience trajectory. In my bio, you know, when I started and I read my bio and I do it every year, I'm always like, did I really do all these things? So you just have to start, because if I didn't start when I wasn't sure or I didn't have all the answers, I'd be now getting into the field or now figuring it out. So start now, start today. Exactly my experience, I would say, go to spaces where you feel valid, where you feel heard, where you feel, and that might just be one person. It might just start with one friend you tell. I mean, I told all my friends, but you know, there's always this one friend that will tell you, do it, jump, you know.
Yes. Yes.
So seek out those spaces. And next, you know, I joined different communities, you know, how to do a business plan. You know, I did that class, and those same women have been along my journey this entire time. So definitely put yourself in spaces where you feel heard, where you feel valid, where people aren't saying, nah, that wouldn't work. And I know there's a lot of that going around.
Yeah.
But definitely seek out those spaces where you can feel your most self, where you don't have to hide, because the more you hide, it's just, it takes time, it delays you. So just be your most genuine self and see who likes it.
Love that. Love that. Something instructive that you said. You said, just start. Failure is part of your experience trajectory. I feel like I should print that and wear that on a t-shirt. I love that.
Yes.
Yes?
Definitely.
And finally, Rachel, the last question for you is, what motivates you to continue pursuing your entrepreneurial dreams?
What motivates me is, this is my life. My passion doesn't just start at 8 a.m. when I go into work, or 9 a.m. when I check in or when I check out. Right? It's a lifestyle. It's part of who I am. I actually use local ingredients. I cook. I try to be as healthy as possible. And I try to know as much about local agriculture, food, so that when my customers ask me, I can tell them honestly, you know, Cardelle is good for this, or, you know, if you can't sleep, you know, use this. So I think definitely, you know, making it a part of your lifestyle. It's not this thing that, and obviously I'm not saying work till 10 in the night. I mean, there are nights like that, but if it's not part of your lifestyle, it's not part of your discipline or your process, then it's very hard to keep checking in and out, right? And the more you integrate it into your lifestyle, your passion, whatever you do, it just makes you even more aware of the gaps, of the challenges, and how to fix it. Because that's what we're really doing as an entrepreneur. We're solving problems every day, right? And what I will say is, trust the path, trust the trajectory that you're on, as long as you're taking those leaps, taking those risks. Because, I mean, in my bio still has that I'm a mentor at Youth Business of Trinidad and Tobago. And I actually didn't update my resume, but as of today, I'm officially on the board of Youth Business of Trinidad and Tobago. 15 years later, I stood in front of this board asking for $30,000, and they gave me $10,000 in 2009. And if they didn't invest in me, I was young, I was underemployed, I was unemployed, actually, I was volunteering at the YMCA. And again, I found a space that accepted me for who I was. I went to every bank, they all told me no. I went to Youth Business of Trinidad and Tobago to ask for this loan to start my business, and it has completely changed my life. And now, today, I get to be on the board and help other entrepreneurs along their journey.
Paying it forward, yes. Paying it forward.
Trust the path that you're on.
Wonderful. Rachel, this has been a pleasure. To all of our viewers on Facebook Live, those of you on Zoom right now, please show Rachel Renie some love. She shared so much. She has shown us the ups and downs, made a number of appeals. And not only that, we have a number of catchphrases that we can print on t-shirts. Somebody in the chat said she's going to put that on a tote. So I feel like you should come out with a t-shirt line, Rachel. Congratulations on all of your successes. It's a pleasure having you here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you.
As we recognize all of the applause and the emojis, Rish, the chat is lighting up here, boy. It's blowing up, boy. Wow. So as we appreciate all of those, we introduce our next panelist as Cardelle Ferguson joins us in our virtual room. And as we get the visuals situated, I'm going to ask my team to bring up image. Oh, they're way ahead of me. Image 4 is already on the screen. There you go. Again, if you're keeping track, we are adding words and adding empowering statements to this one message that we're trying to embrace. And so far, we've done 2. We're on our 3rd. And the message here is fearlessly pursue equity. Now we have Cardelle Ferguson here with us. Cardelle, good morning. Thank you for joining us all the way from Barbados. And if we have anyone else from Barbados with us online, we give a warm welcome to all of you. So Cardelle, we're looking at love. So we're talking about embracing equity from 4 female perspectives. And of course, with you, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurial support from organizations that do that. Sorry, the chat is still going up and I'm
hi everyone,
distracted like that, yeah? Lovely. So Cardelle, tell us please, what role do you think entrepreneurial support organizations like yours play in promoting gender equity, particularly in business?
Okay, so a little bit about the Barbados Youth Business Trust. So we've been operating now for the past, let me not count it, since 1994. We would be celebrating our 30th anniversary next year. And what we've been doing is providing persons who would not have had the opportunities to start and run successful businesses with the opportunity to do so. Wonderful. So we provide training, we provide business mentoring, we provide financial support, and we also help them to get a support network around them. So we give them the hand-holding, right, the hand-holding advice and support. So our role really is to provide that bridge for those persons who are interested in entrepreneurship to see their path towards their future goals.
To see their path towards their future goals. I love that. Another t-shirt. We're coming up with a lot of t-shirts at the end of today. I'm not kidding with this at all. Well, that's beautiful. And it's beautiful that the organization has been in existence this long and that you embrace those ideals, because that hand-holding, that support, it cannot be understated. Cardelle, we need it. Entrepreneurs who are new out there, they really need it. It's not that we want to be spoon-fed, but sometimes the hand-holding is really important. And so it's wonderful to hear that. Here's my other question that I'm curious about. Again, organizations like yours, how do you think you can best support female entrepreneurs and help us female entrepreneurs overcome barriers that could be standing in our way of success?
All right. So let me first start by saying that in my line of business, I have seen that we are supporting predominantly females.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Very interesting. That's good news.
Yes. So so we have a ratio just about between 60 and 70% females that we support. And the reason what we found over time and through our research and experience is that females are more likely to ask for the help. And they will come forward to get that help.
Okay, all right.
So in order for us to create that equity that we are talking about, we need to figure out how we can reframe our programs to attract more males to come forward for that support.
Well, isn't that an interesting problem to have on a day like today, International Women's Day, and you don't have a problem with women stepping up and asking for support? Isn't that fantastic?
You don't.
So we have to reach out to the men, right?
Yes, but that does not necessarily mean that women are not coming to us with challenges.
Okay.
So
of course
we have them coming with the challenge that they have childcare issues, because as Laura would have said before, the job of taking care of the children usually falls on the females. We're not saying that males don't do or anything like that, but it usually falls on the female. So they take care of their children, they will take care of their elderly family member, they will talk about as a family member, and they would then be the caregivers for all of these. So in order for us to support these females to start and run successful businesses, we now have to empower them to see their value in stepping out and making a change towards doing something that they would like to do rather than just doing for the collective.
Because it's as if they don't see themselves doing anything other than what their roles stereotypically have been defined as.
Correct.
All right. That is such an important point to note. Let me ask this though, from as it relates to initiatives, because you talked about a lot of the women coming up looking for that support. What are some of the initiatives that your organization has or promotes, or even if not your organization, initiatives that you've seen in general that really do help or indicate that this is a lifeline or support that's being offered to women in entrepreneurship?
All right. So some of the initiatives that we do, we currently have let's start with the Social Enterprise Incubator that you would have mentioned in my bio. The Social Enterprise Incubator is an opportunity for us to see business not only as a financial endeavor, but also as a way to build our communities and to help our societies to thrive. And so we started our Social Enterprise Incubator in Barbados, Dominica, and St. Lucia in 2019. And so since then, we have seen that we have been supporting young people to understand what is social enterprise and to be more proactive in terms of helping their societies and themselves to grow. In our social enterprise, we have again seen that we have a very high female count as to the people who are participating. We have a total of about 9 males who would have gone through the program. And we have completed support to, I think it's 67 persons.
Wow.
Yeah, and only 9 males. And one of the reasons that I was given for that was that, again, we go back to female as caregivers and female as supportive, and them seeing themselves as a way to help communities to grow. Again, collective view.
Yes.
We also are working with the U.S. Embassy to implement an academy for women entrepreneurs. So far, we have done 4 cohorts of this program. And to date, we have helped 102 females.
Wow.
Yes, 100.
Very impressive.
Females. And what we do with them is we help them to understand the different facets of business and business startup. And what we've created, especially here in Barbados, is a community that supports the females towards better business practices, stronger individuals, and to help them to know that they have a network of support.
Wow. No, that network is phenomenal because we need that. Women need that encouragement. They need to know that there are people who can not only mentor them, but who are in their corner, rooting for them, trying and cheering them on as they achieve each success. So, Cardelle, let me ask this then. What motivates you or your organization to support these female entrepreneurs? You talked about all of the number of initiatives that you have, but especially as you talked about the network and the communities, what motivates you and your organization to really continue supporting these female entrepreneurs?
To me, let's start with me, and then I would move on to the organization. So me as a person, I've always liked to see people achieve their goals. So I'm that kind of person who you tell me you would like to get something done, and I would start looking at how we're going to do this. And it's always we, because I plant myself into your ideas and I find a way to get it done. And I find that I am happiest when I'm helping others.
Oh, that is nice. That is nice.
Right? So I've even done it. So for example, my son has an allergy to gluten, and because of that, I would have tried menus and items and recipes and adjusted recipes so that he can go to parties and not felt left out. Yes. And all of that. So now I make gluten-free bread for persons who do have that identity, and I help them to be comfortable with who they are and recognize that you don't have to stop being yourself in order to advance yourself.
Beautiful. Talk about support. Love that, Cardelle. Lovely.
And as an organization, our underlying aim is people development. And yes, as an organization, we seek to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to achieve their life's goals. So we are creating pathways for them to do so. So when you come to us, you don't come to us with a full-fledged idea or a business plan that you've already built out, or having all of the qualification that you need. We take you as you are, work with you to understand what you have in your closet. As one of my mentors would say, what is in your house? So right, we understand the individual, because we believe as an organization that a strong individual builds strong businesses.
I love that.
So if we train you to be your best self, you then become the best business person that you can be, because that best will translate into everything you do.
Very nice. So a strong individual builds a strong business. Love that.
Yeah. So we would take you, we would do a needs assessment, understanding who you are, where you're starting from, and what you need to get to the next step. Coming from that, we would then identify the best program and the best support for you going forward. So we do the mentoring. So we have different types of mentoring. We have progression mentoring, which helps you to transition from school to work, from employment to entrepreneurship, those transition periods. So we have progression mentoring. Then we have one-on-one mentoring, where the person would have the technical skills, but not the business skill. And so the mentor is going to help them to plan out, is like creating a blueprint of how you can create the skills, the business acumen you need to become strong business person. So then we have that specialist type of mentoring. And then we have the one-on-one type of mentoring, where the mentor would be assigned to you. And then we have the specialist type of mentoring, where you may need a lawyer to help you to draw up an agreement. So as mentors, we have, as an organization, we have mentors who are lawyers and VAT specialists and different specialty areas, accountants, and they would sit with you as a mentor and help you to understand how you can get these tasks done in a short-term basis. So once we've gotten that out of the way, then we can then identify the best program, whether you want to be part of a Explore Enterprise program, which is for the 16 to 25, whether you want to be part of an Enterprise Challenge, which is for the persons 11 to 16, whether you want to be part of our Launch Your Business, which is for the persons 18 years and above, or whether you want to be part of our Social Enterprise Incubator, which is an open program for those persons who are interested in social businesses.
Very nice. A lot is happening in your neck of the woods.
Yes.
We commend you and your team. We commend you and your team, Cardelle. Thank you so much for sharing all of the insightful information that you did share. And in the chat, you will see our participants showing some love, thanking you for sharing the insights. And you might see one or two placing orders for that gluten-free bread that you say that you make, yeah? Because you have us very intrigued where that is concerned as well. Thank you so much for that. So Cardelle, as we say, thank you. And we do appreciate all of the nuggets and the takeaways. By the way, I did note that in terms of mentorship, you have not only progressive, but one-on-one and specialist mentors. That truly speaks to what you said about holding their hands. We love that. Because if there's a bit of trepidation and hesitation, female entrepreneurs need to know that that kind of help is available.
And also our business development support. We have a business development advisor who would sit with you. And a lot of the time, one of the things that he said is that he needs to understand the person behind the business. So some of the conversations that he will have may not be directed to your business, but understanding your situation, because your situation then would determine how successful you can become.
Very nice. Yet another lifeline available to entrepreneurs. Thank you very much. So we say thank you to Cardelle Ferguson. And as we gear up for our conversation with Sara Bernard, I ask my team to bring up my next image, because again, we are connecting the dots. We are coming up with this one embracing message. So far, we've had 3 phrases. We have the 4th one that says, for your voice has the power. If you've been taking notes, you know that we are building the links to one embracing statement that we will share at the end. But we are at that point where we're talking now with Sara Bernard, who we welcome. Sara.
Hi, good morning.
Nice to have you. Listen, your introductory video was something else, you know. We loved it, you know. Loved it. It was unique. It stood out because it shared so much of your personality. So Sara is joining me to discuss the whole aspect of embracing equity, cracking the code to equity. Now, that's a play on words, but we're really going to get into the whole discussion on STEAM fields and the roles that women have played in STEAM and the fields related to that, and the contributions that they've perhaps been making that have sometimes gone unrecognized or sometimes remain even hidden. But to get to that point, we have to start with Sara's journey. Sara, tell us, please, what inspired you to pursue a career in technology, and what have been some of the highlights of your career so far?
Okay, thanks, Denise. I'm going to try to make you not regret that question because I am long-winded, so you could cut me whenever. But basically, I just love math, right? So I was always good at it and I loved it, right? So that's really a great combination. So I always knew I wanted to pursue some kind of math-related field. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So my dad, he's an engineer. He just helped me like check a box for UE, like which one, you know. I wanted to go in teaching. Mommy was like, I don't have no money in it. So she's a teacher herself. So let me just get that clear. And so
put that out there early.
Teaching sector, she said, you know, look at something different. And my dad said, hey, you know, chemical engineering, not looking well good, have money in that, go there, right? So, and the oil and gas industry was booming at the time. When I came out, probably not so much because it took me a couple of years to get a job in the oil and gas industry. But once I did, you know, I enjoyed it. I spent 15 years in there, and the last 5, I was team lead of process engineering. And but I knew once I was in there and I realized how the amount of time, first of all, it was very far. It was in Point Fortin. It was from where I live. So I was from Tacarigua. So I moved to Gaspedo just to be closer, but that's still far. So one of the things I noticed was that, hey, you know, if I get married, and this is how women think, right? So before I even met my husband or knew who my husband was going to be, we planning for them, right? So I was like, you know, if I get married and I have kids, because that's what I want to do, how am I going to do this job? So I started researching. Once I got married, I started researching, hey, you know, what can I do? Because I don't think I can stay here. And I loved it, right? But so so that was one factor of why I started Smart Kids. The other reason why I left where I was and started Smart Kids was because, you know, so I said, okay, let me go into entrepreneurship, but what should I do? And I always recognized that Trinidad and Tobago had an issue, right? When it came to engineering. And I say this, you know, because I'm a locally bred and born engineer. And so going to the local university, what we were really good at is applying existing technologies, right? And we do that very well in Trinidad and Tobago, right? We are still currently, we've been for years, the #1 exporter of ammonia in the world above Russia. You know, I mean, this is really good. We're still in the top 10 when it comes to exporting LNG, right? So we're very good at applying technology, existing technology. What I did not learn to do was innovate. And I recognized that, you know, since I'm young, right? We only have 20 years of oil and gas reserves left, right? But somehow we still have, I don't know, we going on fumes, literally, right? People know what I mean by that, right?
Yes.
So I'm like, listen, we need to use this money that we're getting from the oil and gas sector to make sure that we can pivot into the third, or some people would say the fourth industrial revolution, right? Because, so I do, you know, Lara Q Thomas mentioned reading. One of my favorite books is by Jeremy Rifkin about the third industrial revolution. And in it says, you know, the next phase is really going to be renewable energy, right? So we need, right now, our GDP is 36% dependent on oil and gas. We need to pivot that eventually. It's not going to happen like that. But we need to pivot to that because the world is going that way. And so it means that our labor force needs to pivot, right? So, so I see Smart Kids as my way of contributing to help Trinidad and Tobago move into that direction. What we do is teach kids digital skills and teach them through STEM education, because it's really about teaching kids how to think, right? And teaching them how to innovate, right? Understanding what the innovation process is.
Lovely.
Yeah. And I just one last thing. And the reason why I did that, I wanted to be very clear that it wasn't just, you know, my passion to do that. As a woman, I saw it as a need to switch careers because I needed to make sure I had flexibility in my work schedule so that I could take care of the young kids.
Beautiful.
Back to you, Denise.
What a very balanced coverage there. Love that. Because why your role here is so important is because of the UN's theme about digital innovation and technology for gender equality. And you've given us quite a number of insightful points there. The one that struck me is when you talked about the lack of critical thinking, as in we're just churning out, even at the university level. I think there's that movement to push more towards our graduates thinking critically as opposed to just simply implementing what already exists. So I really have to give you kudos for that. And if Smart Kids does that, forces a child to think outside of the box, we welcome that kind of initiative as well. Sarah,
I want to say critical thinking is different from innovation, right?
Tell us, please.
I do want to, I just want to, I'm not in any, I want to emphasize that the UE graduates, we wouldn't reach to #1 exporting methanol and in the top 10 LNG if we didn't have critical thinkers, if we didn't have people who knew how to optimize very well. And we're very good at optimizing, but innovation is a bit different. I just want to, you know,
Lovely.
I'm not bashing our engineers.
No, at all. So we're looking at the other question then. So since we're talking about innovation as being distinct and different to critical thinking, what are some of the challenges you think face women and even girls who are interested in technology? So they're really raring to go, ready to innovate, but they may encounter some stumbling blocks. What are some of those?
There's so many. So again, context is important, right? We are in Trinidad and Tobago, where really and truly girls, when it comes to girls in education, anybody just go and check the scholarship list, right? So when it comes to girls and education, you would rarely find, compared to other countries, that girls do not have access to equitable education. So that's number one, right? At the university level, I do want to say that for every single field, except for engineering, girls, there are more girls enrolled than boys. So there are actually anywhere between 50 to 80% girls in enrollment, right? And I could tell you that I attended UE, and I, as a young girl, I was looking, you look at, who are the boys around it? They hardly had. I could tell you that, right? So, but in engineering, it's a bit different. It's about 40%. So in terms of the under 40%, in terms of the challenges getting girls into technology, what you may find, number one, I would say, in rural areas. So right now, the last figure I looked at, we have like 70% internet penetration. In Trinidad, 77% in Trinidad and Tobago. We are well like 10% below that of Barbados, 20% below that of the US. So just generally, when it comes to, in order for us to get into technology, we need good broadband internet, right? Not no shaky, honky internet where you can't do, you can't do video and code at the same time, right? So that's number one. The other thing is the devices. Access to devices, not tablets and phones, right? There's only so much you can do on a tablet and a phone. If you want to get into coding, you need some kind of computer, a laptop or a desktop. So those are the things that are really important, right? And that's for everybody across the board. When it comes to girls, who, if they are on, one of the risks I say is social media, right? Social media, so technology and social media affects girls differently than it affects boys, right? Okay. Parents need to be aware of the marketing of social media towards girls and boys is totally different. So whereas girls might go on Insta and, be, looking how to put on makeup, what boys are doing, right? And of course, it's a full generalization. Boys are playing Minecraft or I have young kids, so it's Minecraft. Roblox and girls play a lot of Roblox. This other thing, there's a shooting game, something duty, whatever. Fortnite, that's it. Fortnite and so on, right? My child isn't allowed to play yet; he's only 8. But Fortnite is a big one, and people may say, "Oh, yeah, so the boys into violence." No, what they're actually into is learning collaboration skills and so on. So they are there actually networking and working together and solving problems. And we're on there figuring out how to do our eyebrows. Right? Yeah. So and I did watch a video on that recently, just saying. So I think I'm getting better at it. But at the end of the day, that's a big problem, right? We need to understand, and I had to explain it to my daughter, what you do more of, right? Whatever you spend your time on, that's what you get educated in. Beautiful point. If you spend more time collaborating with peers, you'll get better at collaborating with peers. If you spend more time watching useless TikTok videos, you'll get really good at just learning mindless pieces of information. It's very important for us to understand what is marketed towards us, right? Finally, Sarah. Yeah, thank you. The last thing I want to say about girls and technology, now the network is really, really important. Lara Q Thomas, number one, I can't believe I'm on a panel with her. That is awesome. I really look up to her. I love how she spent her time contributing, giving back, right? Yes. One of the things she said, gosh, my mind went blank, sorry guys. But what I would say is like network, right? Is networking, right? What we don't have is the network, right? She said girls need to, and women need to step up in the boardrooms and step up. But let me tell you how you step up into a boardroom, right? Your friend tells you about an opportunity and says, hey, or they know you. You know, I know somebody, I know this guy. This is what happens. I know this guy, he's really good at banking. He'd be great on this insurance board. I don't know even if they have insurance board, but let's just say, right? And I'd be bored or whatever, right? They will, that's what happens, right? And I can tell you as a female engineer who was, I was a team lead, and most of my peers were males. I would tell you, I missed out on a lot because I just don't connect with them in that way. I don't want to talk about football. Now, you have girls who do, but I don't. So in the morning, if they're talking about, I don't know, whatever, sports or whatever, I don't know, whatever it is that guys talk about that I am not interested in, they would huddle and they would want to, I'm not invited. It happens naturally. But the men, I will tell you, they did not exclude me specifically. I was excluded because I'm not into what they're into. And it's while they had the other team leads had these casual conversations, would they mention, hey, did you know such and such happened at this board meeting and so and so. So they were aware of social things that happened within the organization that I just wasn't, right? So they were aware of social opportunities. They're aware of, hey, you know, we have this job opening coming up now, you know, you could prepare for it by doing this. You know, there's this opportunity to go away, or this secondment. If you talk to so, you can talk. Listen, I got a secondment to Spain because I heard that the person was actually chosen, right? Who was actually chosen, didn't get to go, and I realized that person, once I found out, so somebody else was chosen, and I let it be known. So I articulated, you know, I would have liked to have been considered for that opportunity. My boss told me, I didn't know you were interested. But you never asked me, because these things happen casually, and they don't mean to exclude you. People won't actively seeking to persecute women. I'm just telling you, these things happen naturally. So what's my point? How do we solve this? Really, by forming our own networks, recognizing that, A, we have to help each other out. I'm trying to remember if Laura said it or whether Renie said it, but someone said, you know, women need to help. Yes, Laura mentioned it, the next generation of women. Right, so she mentioned the banking sector, where you actually actively seek out. I went and I asked Caroline Tony Sergio, I asked her, would you be my mentor? Right. Don't give me that mentor, right? I went and asked, and she considered, you know, she said, let me think about it, right? I asked, guys, you know, so women have to understand that when the network doesn't exist for you, you have to create it.
Beautiful point, Sarah. And here now, ain't nobody faulting you for your passion, boy. I mean, it's coming loud and clear, but we get it. We get what you're saying, because it kind of speaks to some of the points that we've been connecting all throughout. We had one during racial segment about amplifying your voice. Look at that opportunity that could, with regards to that Spain, you're saying the same thing. And we just mentioned about fearlessly pursuing equity. And your segment, did we share it? Was your voice has the power. Love it. Love it. Sarah, let me ask you one final question. And I'm adding in a little element because as I hear you speak, it triggered a question in my mind. And you're so knowledgeable. I wanted to ask, what are the steps that we need to take to encourage girls and women to pursue careers in technology and coding? But you cannot escape the fact that artificial intelligence is now very popular. I mean, there's so much you're reading about it, so many new things coming out from ChatGPT and all of these various things. People feel that that could potentially be a bit of a threat. So I'm asking, what do girls need to hear from you right now? Give us something that they need to hear right now that not only empowers them and encourages them to pursue these careers in technology and coding, but would allay or quell any fears that they may have as it relates to artificial intelligence and what's happening in that realm.
Sure. So, so much to touch on here, but one thing just on artificial intelligence in general, what I would say is, you know, every innovation that happens in society brings along with it benefits and challenges, right? So, for example, you know, when the calculator came out, you know, they were like, oh my God, like how are we gonna, they won't need math anymore, right? Because, you know, you could just do it. But In order to use a calculator, you need to, in fact, I remember there was a class in which taught us how to use a scientific calculator, right? So it now becomes a skill to be able to use a calculator. Similarly, there's the computer, etc. You know, it's like, oh, now we wouldn't need, now things are automated. So we wouldn't need X and Y, Z jobs anymore. Correct. It means that you need less people to do what you needed to do before. Right. And it means now that we can focus those skills, so that new jobs will come up in terms of understanding the equipment, and so in terms of building that equipment, and in terms of manufacturing the chips for it. So it means that society needs to pivot from, let's just say, training X amount of people to build the cars, because now you have machines doing it, to now having laborers to fix any machine. You know, they're different, right? So there's the skills gap. So what would happen? Some skills will close, and there's now a skills gap, and people need to train up for it. So now when it comes to artificial intelligence, you'd hear with ChatGPT in education, a lot of people are concerned, you know, because people could cheat and so on.
Correct. Yes.
Yes, it is true, right? You know, when the internet came out, I'm sure, you know, people cheat. But the thing, so what they would have to do is put in some safeguards around that, educate people around it, and right. So it's a problem, but it is not. It doesn't mean that the technology is all bad. There are good things to come of it. So that's what I want people to understand, right? Yes, some jobs will be replaced, some jobs will be created, right? When it comes to technology and adopting it now, meaning digital skills, I would encourage two things. Number one, people need everybody. It doesn't matter if you're into tech or not, right? In the past, there was reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now there's reading, writing, arithmetic, and digital literacy, right? So you need to, you are in a digital world. You need to be aware. So a child, for example, my daughter, she needs to be aware of when she's watching YouTube, whether this is an ad, whether or not you are getting science facts from just some arbitrary random YouTuber, or if this person actually has a degree in science. A lot of times these are just arbitrary YouTubers telling you outrageous science facts that, you know, so there's a new set of digital literacy skills that a 10-year-old in 2022 needs versus a 10-year-old, you know, 20 years ago, okay? So I want people to understand that you need to skill up when it comes to digital skills and be aware of what you need to do. For example, you need to be more efficient in your job? Can you use ChatGPT, or can you use an AI bot to answer your incoming requests in customer service? You have a lot of females, as the previous panelist said, in business. Can they now adopt technology to help them be more efficient in their job? They don't have to be in technology to adopt technology. So, and then in terms of encouraging girls to get into technology, again, what I would say is, if you look at the enrollment in UE as an example, right? You have more girls in science fields than you do boys, right? Engineering, not so, right? So engineering, yes, we still need to encourage. What I would do, I would use this opportunity on Women's Day to say we actually have a problem where you have girls that are trained in STEM fields that are not taking up jobs in STEM fields. Okay. And you have women in STEM fields, right, that are not ascending, you know, so again, Lara Q spoke about this, are not ascending because they know they have to take a career hit even before they get married. I planned my career hit. I planned it. And I'm telling you that we need to give more options to our women and our girls in terms of what careers they can choose. Why must so many of listen, I graduated from St. Augustine Girls High School, arguably one of the best high schools in Trinidad and Tobago. And I will tell you that there are women in my class who studied medicine, engineering, right? And they are now teachers. Why? Why? Because they thought it was a logical step for them in order to take care of their kids. And I'm not saying that they have regretted their decision. I have done the same thing. What I'm saying is, I don't want my daughter to have to do it. I want it to be an option between her and her spouse, right? An option that is there. And how do we do that? Step number one, why are we still talking about maternity leave? Maternity leave is 14 weeks. Tell me, what is the mandatory paternity leave in Trinidad and Tobago? It is 0 days. I know an oil and gas company that gives 3 days. Thanks. Let me tell you something. What we need to start talking about is parental leave. In many of these Women's Day discussions, people are going to ask women, how do you balance career and family? Do you all ask men that?
Work-life balance is always, that is a point. That work-life balance is always a question.
Yeah, why are we not asking men that? We need to ask men that. So I am saying, right, what we need to do, as the favor you could do us, right? There are 95% women, females in the teaching service. And you want to know why boys not doing good in school. Right? I just put that out there. We want to know why boys not doing good in school, but have 95% women teachers. Because I could tell you, when I have a problem with my son, I talk to my husband and I say, you need to talk to that boy. Right? So I am saying that we need to give families more options. And how we do that is understand that the raising of the family, right? Society is, right? Maslow's law of hierarchy. We have needs now, right? We need to ensure that men as well as women take up the mantle when it comes to caring for the next generation, right? And it's just about more options. I'm not saying that, of course, you still have housewives and that is, you would still have more women choosing to stay home. Of course, I am just saying, let's give ourselves more options as a society.
Love that. My. Sara Bernard, you are a powerhouse with a perspective that we certainly appreciated. Look at the love you're getting in the chat there. What an overwhelmingly positive list of suggestions. We get the passion. We're receiving it. We receive the pointers. I love that parenting point there about, the fact that women, you're right. I mean, I'm speechless. I'm at a loss for words here. And I'm sure that in the chat, that many others feel the exact same way. So we want to say thank you very much. We talked about embracing or cracking the code in terms of equity. And Sara pointed out a number of key things where she feels there are areas where we can do more, from the skills gap to the parenting, some of the things that we ought to change, not necessarily as a corporation, but even as individuals. Beautiful point, Sara Bernard. Love that. So at this point, we are looking to wrap up, but we just need to give you that last empowering statement, that last expression that we need to add to everything else. So I'm cueing the team to bring up image number 6. And image number 6 finishes the complete embracing statement. And we want to read it together. You don't have to unmute necessarily, but you're adding that last piece of the statement to what you already have. Image 6 would say, yes, to ignite courage and drive change. So that's the last piece of it, to ignite courage and drive change. So all in all, coming out of this training session where you have been wowed and impressed by the likes of Lara Q Thomas, Renie, Sara Bernard, and Cardelle Ferguson, and you've taken away so many key points that they've shared in their various areas as it relates to earning your seat at the table, blazing your own trail as an entrepreneur, creating opportunities for entrepreneurs to thrive, and of course, cracking that code to equity. We add this one last element to the phrases you've been compiling since the start. And we hope that you're still here with us. The last one says, to ignite courage and drive change. So with that done, in the chat, please, if you are on Facebook, please put it there. Every one of you, if you remember our one embracing statement, I'd like you to put it there now, please. I'm not going to tell you what it is, because if you put the complete thing there, you have the opportunity of participating in some free courses that Solve Academy will be offering. But you need to give me that complete statement. So let me see what's happening in the chat. And I'm doing this because we're preparing for our last item on our agenda, which would be our closing remarks, which will be delivered by the chair of YBTT, Dale Lachlan. And so
I'll be doing it. Sharon will be doing it.
All right. So we want you to be on alert for that. but I really want to see what's happening in the chat. Did we get it? Did we get that one embracing statement, guys? Did we? I'm stopping my video deliberately so that we can just draw attention to the chat. So what's in the chat? What is that all embracing statement? Or if you're with us on Facebook, what are you putting in the comments area? Here is the statement that we want you to take away. Embrace your true self, amplify your voice, fearlessly pursue equity, for your voice has the power to ignite courage and drive change. That, my friends, is our one embrace, our one embracing statement. And if you put it there in the chat, we'll share my credentials in a moment for Solve Academy, and you have an opportunity for a free course. Nevertheless, we're at the point where we wrap up today's session, and we now invite Shedron Collins, the General Manager of YBTT, to address us with the closing remarks. Shedron, you have our full attention.
Right, great. So thank you, Denise. And the chat's still going off there, so I'm hoping, well, I'm seeing some persons putting in the full statement. And, you know, I want to first off start off by thanking our panelists today, Rachel, Lara, Cardelle, Sara, and like Lara said, you know, when Shedron called the answer sometimes. So at least first off, thanks for answering the call. Right, to get things off the ground. And really putting this forum together, and Denise for the work in the background as well as the forefront of moderating as well, really coordinating this whole effort to have the voices heard. And as I start off the close, we're going to ask you all soon to turn on your cameras so we can all do the Embrace Equity statement live. So this is your time, giving your time right now to touch up, right? To make sure that your camera ready as well. Those who are on the Zoom with us. And you know, earlier today, YBI would have posted on their Youth Business International Facebook channel, just indicating at least in this entire network for 2022, we will have supported 71,000 young women just in 2022, right? And as you would have heard with Cardelle, even when we look at our stats in terms of young women being supported here at YBTT, same things reflected with 70% of young persons supported are women, right? And there's a shameless plug if anybody's out there looking to get that jump start in terms of their business, look out for our upcoming program in April. But when we talk about Embrace Equity, the call has to follow an action. And that action must incorporate joint reflection, collective action, but also a shared ownership. And those are the three things that I also want to add in terms of the conversation. So feel free to join us, share your comments, suggestions, recommendations. What do you think is our next step should be as we continue on this journey? If you're watching us live on the Facebook, if you're on the Zoom, feel free to use this opportunity to share with us right there. And you know, check me outside for those quote t-shirts. I've been writing it down. Right, so check me outside for that. And I would just want to wish everyone a happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
What a beautiful message there, Shedron. Thank you so much. The lone male coming into an IWD event, but we're glad to have you. Very glad to have you. So he did give you the heads up, guys. We are going to do that Embrace Equity Embrace.